Hello, Reviteers, and welcome to our annotation lecture. For this lecture, I'm going to be in my main level. You can actually use your modern 2-bedroom for this assignment. I'm using the tiny casita, but you may use either one of those projects to do your annotation. Now, when I refer to annotation, I mean anything in our model that has text or numbers in it. So for example, dimensions are part of our annotation. These interior elevation markers are part of our annotation. Sorry, not the toilet. I'm clicking on too many things right here. A section cut is included in annotation. Exterior elevations, any sort of a keynote or a reference note, as well as room labels. So over this lecture, we are going to go over how to insert room labels, how to put in keynotes, and then I'll quickly go over how offices put in keynotes. It's going to be a little bit different than what we do in this class. And I will also teach you guys how to edit those notes if you want to customize them as well. So to get us started, what I'd like to do is to have you guys meet me in the Annotate menu. I've already got it up here. And we've got our text up. The shortcut for this is TX. So if you're in the architecture menu, you can easily hit TX and it'll put up the text, it'll pull up the text menu for us. Now, as I mentioned, we will be using text to do our reference notes. And we can also use this menu just to put in text. And the difference between the two is one of them has an arrow and one of them doesn't. So because we're going to be going over reference notes, I will be going over the text with an arrow. But remember, if you ever just wanted to put in random text, you may use this no leader button as well. So our two-segmented note works like this. If I wanted to note my bathroom, my first click is the arrow pointing to the tub. My second click ends the line, and then my second click is the actual leader. So you don't want that to be too long, you actually want it to be pretty short. And then after that second click, it wants you to type in what your note is. So I'm going to write bath by color. And then to stop typing, you either hit close or the shortcut is Control Q. That gets you out of that menu. There used to be a different shortcut that I thought was a little bit easier. I'm not sure why it's been disabled, but if I find something better than the Control Q, I'll let you know. In the past, I was able to either hit like Control Enter or Shift Enter, and it exited out of the editing mode. So once you have this in here, first let's talk about how you might want to customize it. At this point, I know that all of you guys will be able to customize your text. And in fact, if you are pretty confident that you can do it on your own, go ahead and hit pause, try it, and then come back and verify it with how I'm about to do it. So first, click on the note, and we'll see the properties. So this is text. That's 330 seconds Arial. What we're going to do is edit the type. Remember, we always duplicate it. And let's call this 330 seconds, and I'm going to call it SLCC because this is for the school. And then as soon as we duplicate it, now we're free to go ahead and make the changes we want. So from here, the most important are not the most important, but the things that people really want to change might be the text. So instead of Arial, you might want Arial Narrow. Let's see if there's spooky. Oh, darn, there's not. Usually there's like some sort of like spooky or Halloween things to go with the season. We don't have that, so I'm just going to change it to maybe Arial Narrow. And then after that, the other thing that people like to do is change, let me move this out of the way, this arrowhead. Right now, it's a 30-degree arrow, but you can see that there are filled arrows. There are also dots. And what I want to do is be able to hit apply, but I don't think it's going to let me do it until I hit OK. So now we can see those changes. The font changed as well as the arrow. And when I click on it, it's the SLCC text. If I want to change it back, I can pull down and there's that Arial. I can kind of go back and forth between them. So for this assignment, what I'd like to see is you kind of making a custom note for yourself, a custom reference note. Change the text and find an arrow that you'd like to use throughout your project. So once you have one of them done, there's two ways to make copies of it. And okay, let me back up. You could hit TX for text, select SLCC, and then make a new note, right? And I always like to line these up, and I could write water closet color. Okay, that's one way. I think it was Control. So that's one way. Let me delete that. I think an easier way is to click on it, type in CS for create similar, and then create a note from there. Okay, I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'll hit escape. Do you want to keep changes? No. I think another even easier way as well is to click on it, type in CC for copy, and the first thing you want to do is click on where you want to copy it from. So this is basically like if you were to pick up an object, where do you want to hold it from? I'm going to hold it from here, and then I drag down. I'm just going to place it right below. There's my copy. And then from here, I can move my arrow, double click to edit the text. And to be honest, this probably wasn't any easier than the CS. In fact, it's probably a little bit more work. So play with them, find out which one you think works best. I'm pretty confident that the create similar or the CC for copy will be your easiest rather than going through the whole TX menu from the top. But that's what we're looking for as far as reference notes on your plans. Now for this exercise, I'll just be looking for at least like 2 or 3 notes per room. And they can be as generic as you want. You don't need to know the manufacturer, you don't need to know the color. What I'm going to be grading you on is that you created your own style and that they are arranged nicely like this, like everything is stacked, it's pretty close to the room. What I don't want to see is kind of like wonky text, different size letters, and then not lined up at all, kind of like broken like this. Let's make sure that, again, everything is nice, stacked, and consistent. That makes it look really professional. And again, by copying, that really helps you make sure that these things are consistent. So those are keynotes, and that's how we will be inserting them in this exercise as well as your final project. Now, before we get off of keynotes, there's one other thing I want to show you, because in the future, you may work for an office that also uses keynotes a little bit differently. So if you go to Annotate, you'll notice that there is a keynote feature as well. And the keynote works directly off of something called specification sections. Now, depending on what classes you've taken in the college, you may or may not know what I'm referring to. But specifications put everything that could possibly go into a building and places them in a specific category that is numbered. So for example, like everything that's lighting goes into one of the indexes and so on. Let me show you a quick example. Let me just go to specification, numbering. So let me do sections. Okay, here we go. These are the specs. So for example, all of your furnishing goes in 12. All of your plumbing goes in 22. You don't need to remember these, but I just want you to know that these are where the numbers that you're about to see on my screen come from. Again, there's other classes like your codes classes that will go through this in more depth. So with that, if I click on Keynote and I come to my tub, do you see that it's already like, oh, she's pointing to a tub. Here's a keynote for it. And then when I click, it places it. It's going to give me a little leader. And now it's going to ask me, where does this go? Now, we just saw that plumbing is in Division 22. And if I hit the plus sign, I need to tell it what it is. So this is plumbing, and it is a domestic, let's go through here, plumbing fixtures. And this is a tub. You might be yelling at your screen, Naima, there's the tub. Bathtub. There we go. I'm going to click on OK. There is the super official specification keynote number. Now, again, some offices might do this because as part of their contract, they actually have to give them a formal specification. And that's a document that goes through the model number, how to install it, how to finish it, all of those things. So this number will correspond to a separate manual that somebody in the company might be creating. So again, this isn't required, but I wanted you to see, like, in case you saw a keynote button and you were wondering, why aren't we using this? Why are we using this? That's the main difference between the two. So we can keep it generic as far as what information we put in, but we can still be specific in our own description here without using the specification sections. Okay, so that is the first part. That is how we'll put in the keynotes.